Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I've got Jonathan Latona right here in person. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, he is here. We finally got a feature filmmaker in for a while. Yeah, I haven't seen one for a minute. And Jonathan, his film Doug, which played at Film Invasion LA in 2020, took home the Audience Award for Best Feature. You want to name how many hats you had? Writer, director, producer, cinematographer. Absolutely everything.
Everything but sound, yeah.
Everything but sound. And he took home Best Cinematography.
Yes.
Which is rad. And well deserved, because, man, that film looks good. And also your lead actor got Best Lead Actor, and I think we all know that the director has something to do with the performances on screen. So
I would hope so. There wasn't really much you could do for Doug, though. He pretty much knew what he was doing all along, so...
He did own that. I mean, the film's actually... His name is Doug.
Yeah.
And he plays Doug, so yeah, he owned that role.
Pretty much, yeah. No, it's, yeah. He surprised me, so...
Yeah. So this is one of those podcasts. I'm not going to start off, but here I do it subtly. I'm not going to start off telling people to go watch the TV series on Amazon Prime Video called Discover Indie Film, because Jonathan's film is a feature, so it's not in there. We haven't added features to that, although I was going to tell him, hey, man, if people who self-release sometimes, I think, like, why not have a series of features on Discover Indie Film? But anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm just going to let Jonathan jump right in since we don't have to talk about all that stuff. At the end of this conversation, we'll talk about all the websites and social media handles you should know for the shit I do and the shit Jonathan does. I'm making it clear we can curse all we want.
Oh, it's total shit.
Total. All right, so go ahead. I warned Jonathan the first question was going to be, how did you end up a filmmaker? Like, what inspired you? What were your early starts of this?
Oh, so we're going back in time.
Yeah, go back. Go back to, like, what inspired you to get into it, or what was the first stuff you played with? Did you start as a kid? Did you get interested in school?
I don't know. I got to think about it for a second, because I remember my grandfather having like a like an old VHS tape camcorder where you actually had to put the part of the tape into the cassette and put the cassette in the camera and then actually start recording.
Yeah, and it was a massive suitcase size thing.
Yeah.
Big.
No, it was pretty. It was like the size of a throw pillow or a suitcase. Yeah, and then they just got increasingly smaller over time. But his was like one of the old school ones where like the eyepiece came out and extended like to your eye. Actually extended to your eye, and then had all that. And that's when I learned what a cut was. When I actually pressed record and stopped for the first time, then watched it on TV, and I said, "Oh, that's what they do."
Right, so you did. So you were playing with it, and you almost accidentally edited in camera, and then when you watched it play back, you saw, "Oh, I edited in camera just now."
Yeah, and I didn't know what that meant until like later.
Because who would know?
Like maybe like a decade or so later.
Well, how old were you for this? Were you?
I don't remember.
Like
that's
under
like
10?
Maybe
elementary school-ish.
I don't really remember.
Yes, but so early that you weren't. It wasn't like you were a kid who was trying to replicate what you saw on TV.
I didn't know anything yet.
Yeah,
I just knew what a cut was. I just knew what they did. But like later on in life, then like maybe I want to say like a handful of years later, my father left the country, and that's another story in of itself. And then I kind of pretty much just threw myself into middle school, high school age, because I don't remember a large part of my childhood, believe it or not. And then finally, when I was in high school, it was like freshman year of high school, I started going to like drama clubs and things like that. And then by the end of my first semester, freshman year, it was like that kind of like crossroad fork in the road thing. And I decided to take acting a little more seriously. And so I joined drama class. I joined another acting class outside of school that I started going to, not knowing that that's what people do. Not knowing that that's what people, because I mean, this is in South Florida during like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like Columbine just happened, and then all of a sudden it's like high school, and then it's like 2004 high school was my freshman year, and then later on I just kind of like took it more and more seriously, and I tried to get pushed into like a direction of like, oh yeah, you should actually focus more on your academics, because I just had the worst time in school, test wise and everything like that. And I would just write all the time. I would overwrite my essays. I would overwrite papers. I would piss teachers off all the time. And then finally, I decided to quit drama program because they were, terrible people.
The people in the drama program.
The drama program who it was run by.
Right, at your school.
And the school and the people who were affiliated with the drama program inside the school were just terrible people all around.
Right. Not just staff, but the kids. Like it was just a
shitty
clique?
It was a terrible clique. It was run by one woman who was just a, beast of a ghastly woman. And everyone else, kind of just like, it was almost as if, how high school plays politics and things like that. So literally that's what it was. And lo and behold, things got pretty dirty and pretty messy. And then so my mom just was like, kind of like trying to wean me out of it. So much so where I had to pretty much drop out of everything. And, it was just a terrible experience all around. And it was supposed to be positive, but it wasn't. And anyone else would have basically just quit and probably, not have come to LA to do their thing. But like when I had come here and tried to meet up with some of the kids who actually had been in that same program and been out here, none of them have ever to this day have never contacted. So I'm just like, fuck them. They're terrible people. So I'll throw them under a bus. I won't say names, but I'll throw them under a bus. For sure.
You haven't named the school or anything.
It's pretty obvious when you get to know me. But yeah, no.
But what's really kind of fascinating there is instead of so the standard story you hear is, there was this incredibly inspiring drama teacher that brought out your desire to perform. But you have the desire. First, you played with the camera. Mm-hmm. Then you got into performance through school plays and shit. Mm-hmm. And then you had such a crappy teacher that you stepped away, but you didn't lose the love. Like that crappy program didn't make you just flip off acting entirely.
Right.
Instead,
because I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I just was never playing with the right people.
And were you more interested in acting then than the writing and the shooting, or?
No, I think. Well, yeah, kind of, sort of, a little bit of both, but like, I just really wanted to learn about the whole thing, and no one would really, be willing to teach it in a enthusiastic way. And I met kids who had great experiences, went on to great schools. I didn't, and I've always had a chip on my shoulder about it.
So did you come right out to LA, or did you do some school in between?
No, I did. Then my mom came up with the brilliant idea of going to North Carolina. And it was like one of those places that she had always wanted to go to. But she had chosen...
like pick up and move.
Yeah, like leave. Like when I was like 18. And she says, I'm going with or without you. And I was like, oh, okay. Because the idea was get into a state school in Florida. Like go to Florida State or go somewhere else. Be with the same swine people, but like actually get shit done. Be with a different group of Floridian kids, whatever, what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you were probably one good teacher away from having a good program, right? Because it all filters down.
Well, this is where, so this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. So we go to, my mom is like, let's go to Asheville. I say, no, not Asheville. Let's, maybe. And then she's like, okay, I'll do some more research. And then she found this one place called Wilmington, North Carolina. Right off the coast, 90 minutes north of Myrtle Beach. So I was like, let's go there because, they were in the middle of doing shows. They were in the middle of actually shooting things, and so I thought it would be like a smaller version of Los Angeles. And it really wasn't that until like maybe a few years later. But I'd got in at a good time. And at the time, thinking about it, I just don't know the town. I don't know the area. It's very tiny. I'm trying to get acclimated to it. I'm only 18 at the time when I first moved there. And so I didn't know anything. My mom was trying to psych me up to move out of the house at some point. And, I was trying to do all of that. And, I got a job, typical teenage, like 18, 19, 20, experience. And things were not working out for me for a few years there. And
because changing states meant you couldn't apply to a public college in North Carolina and qualify as a resident.
I wasn't even getting into the Florida colleges, so I had to go to the community college route. And so, at the time, my mom was kind of freaked out because she went that route and she didn't have a good time. And so the first thing we did was, enroll me in this wonderful school called Cape Fear Community College. And she was like, "Oh no, it's a great school. You'll love it. It's called Cape Fear. It's based off, the movie.
Yeah, the movie. That's the movie where the woman got her face bit off.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking the movie. I'm like, but it's actually Cape Fear because of the river. Because there's a Cape Fear River that runs through the city and everything. And the school is right there. No shit.
Beautiful and
downtown.
By a river.
It's fucking great. You got walking distance to everything, And so we moved, we got there and, started school and immediately just hated it.
Because it was new and different or it wasn't a good fit?
I wasn't in film school yet. You had to do the first semester bullshit,
And the word was prerequisite,
prerequisites
right?
to everything. So my first year at Cape Fear was shot. I had to take all my prerequisite courses before I could take the actual...
All the stuff you don't want to learn, you got to just suffer for a year while you're probably trying to get a job and stuff, work part-time.
I remember...
that's just not a fun year.
Oh, yeah, I remember being completely miserable when the first J.J.
And you just moved, so it's not like you got a group of friends.
Just moved, and I remember being completely miserable, literally going for walks, trying to entertain myself. I mean, at the time, I wasn't living downtown. I was living in another county over. So the town that I was living in wasn't really developed yet, and it was getting developed. And so I would literally have to walk in circles every maybe hour, maybe top of the hour, just to entertain myself, listening to, whatever I listened to at the time. I think it was just an amalgamation of things I listen to now, 80s rock, things that, And
the music we love at 18 pretty much lasts for about 30 to 60 years.
Hopefully, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't anything really contemporary, I didn't. And then walking around, and then finally saying to myself, man, this fucking sucks. I'd just seen J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, and I was like, why the fuck am I, that was the direction everything was going in at the time. And I was just kind of just not really in a good spot until a year or so later when I could start taking the classes that I wanted to take. And then it was just I had to take a summer course within the first year just to catch up. And then finally, but I got a good feel of the town at this point, So by the time it was my second year, I was already a year behind, but I was finally learning at my own pace. I was learning with the people that I wanted to learn with. And more importantly, I was finally taking film courses with a guy named David Kreutzer. And he was the guy who's huge inspiration.
Worked for you, resonated.
Yeah.
The kind of teacher you need.
Yes. Oh yeah, no, he was literally one of a kind. I never met anybody quite like this guy before. Just interesting dude. He now teaches at University of Georgia. Actually.
Oh, so he had his abilities got recognized.
He was the kind of dude who first day was Dead Poet Society shit. Right. You know what I mean? Like tear it out. You know?
No, I mean, you. This guy was critical for you.
Oh yeah, big time.
This is one of those human beings turning around your life kind of things.
Oh yeah, no, he was the kind of dude who was like, you know, I mean, it's funny that like,
and you're like 19 at that point, probably the second year.
I was turning 20.
Turning 20.
Yeah, I was turning 20.
Which at the time you felt old, but looking back, it's like, oh wow, 20 is. 20 is still a baby.
The first thing he told us to do was buy this one book, which was about, I honestly, I don't remember the name of it, but everything that I do now was in that book. Everything, you know, the switch cuts, the pan cuts, the make it look like one shot cuts, like everything was in that. I forgot what it's called. I think I still have it somewhere, but I literally don't remember the name of it.
Interesting.
It's like garage filmmaking or some shit. And then
there was a super influential book. It was like got more influential because Kevin Smith had read it. Yeah, sure. But the feature films for used car prices or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's not that one.
My favorite was Rebel Without a Crew. That was my favorite. And, that was like one book that I had read a few times before actually starting the real film school experience. And then,
Right, so you were actually very enthusiastic about film.
Oh, big time. Yeah. I mean, more so than, like,
and you weren't just, like, dying to act. You were dying to be a filmmaker at that point.
I'd given up acting at that point.
Yeah.
I'd given up acting when I quit drama, actually. And,
right, and there was no desire to jump back into that. You were completely on the other side. In your mind, you just transitioned to the other side of the camera.
Yeah, because I'd read all the acting books. I'd read every fucking acting book, and they all confused the fucking shit out of me. Like, literally, like, they all confused the living shit out of me. The one that made the most sense, to me anyway, sorry, I'm fucking getting emotional.
No, which I think is actually great.
It's the ratings! No, I'm kidding. No, you can cut that out. But the Stanislavski books were the ones that really resonated the most, and those were the ones I think that I was just like all in on and read all the ones. But Udo Hagen, Meisner, I got into a fight with an acting coach in college because he was trying to teach me Meisner, and I did not have the mental capacity at the time to understand it. How anybody teaches Meisner to children, I guess that makes sense, but there's something that happens when people get older. There's some sort of like trigger goes off where they don't really comprehend situations like children or older adults do. And so, when he was like, oh, repetition, I was just like, what the fuck are you fucking talking about? This doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it because what?
I mean, I'm no expert on the acting things, but yeah, Meisner I know is highly emotionally sophisticated, right? It's like embodying a character.
No, it's more of just, talking and listening, I feel like, and I get it now because, just like, having worked on my own projects, having worked on, other projects and even being background and everything, like, it's tough because you have to literally just be in that zone with that person. And I think those exercises where they say, oh, your eyes are blue, your eyes are blue, your eyes are blue, your eyes are blue, your eyes are red, brown, red, whatever the fuck. And then you change it as it goes along, but you change it based on how the person hears it, that to me is interesting, and we did a lot of that with Doug too. I a lot of just going back and forth, trying new things, and seeing what worked. But a lot of it, I did not understand it at 20, at 21, and I needed time, So I just was like, okay, acting is just there, but I want to focus more on producing and making stuff because I knew that that's what the future was for me, and I knew that was the direction I was going in. So.
And by the way, I totally swept up in the story when you felt that was for you. I mean, was it also because you were a bit of a film fan? Like, were you a cinephile?
Oh, of course.
You were like renting movies all the time? Like you were into the medium.
That period of time when I was done with the drama program, I was still in high school, but I had nothing going on. So movies and research and reading was all that I had.
Right.
And I didn't. The first time I bought a film camera was maybe like my senior year gift or whatever, and that was like a mini DV, but everything was like the small mini DVs. And then the first thing I did when I was in Wilmington was I started filming bands.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So there was a music scene there.
There was a big music scene that was it was blooming. It wasn't really like it was blossoming into something and then it died immediately. But I was there to capture like at least the blossoming end. And then now it's like big again, but it's only a matter of time before it dies again. I'm guaranteeing that just because of the way things work over there. And, people are just, they'll get fucking swept up.
Well, it's not a big population.
It's
town,
getting
right?
big now, but it's not a big place.
To keep a music scene going when you're like less than a million people or whatever, like I don't see how.
During the years of 2009 and 2012, I think I'd maybe gone to 300, maybe 500 different shows that were just bands like that I was either filming or that I was a part of or that I was just spectating or I was just really like at and I didn't know what it was, that kind of stuff. So,
right, like at small clubs and just...
Yeah, no, it was, it was one of those things where it was just like all around kind of just like... just different types of clubs, like...
but music clubs, like where you go see live music when you're in your 20s.
There was one music club.
You can finally drink.
One music club, everything else was a bar.
Right.
Kind of vibe. And then, there would be big bars, and then there'd be little bars, and then it'd be like a fucking metal bar, and then there'd be, so it was
But we're
all over
talking
the place.
fun local bar bands, not big bands you hear, not big bands coming into town to tour.
Some big bands, minus the Bear, came to town. There were a few bands that were huge, but the ones that I was filming were mostly local bands,
which is actually kind of more rewarding, I would think, to like
they
get
were
to
fun.
know the bands. And be part of the scene.
My first.
And by the way, you say shoot. Sorry, let me cut you off.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
So were you like just shooting live shows for them so that they would have something cool to?
I was filming their live shows, but I never gave them any footage.
So you didn't cut something together for them to throw on a website or something?
That wasn't the thing back then.
Right. It
wasn't
was
even
it?
the thing yet.
MySpace was the thing, wasn't it?
Like YouTube was new still, and so nobody really thought, and honestly too, I mean, it was just too time consuming. I didn't, I editing good, like subpar footage with terrible audio, because it will always be like, and then you'd hear the music and shit, and then literally I couldn't make out what the fuck anybody was saying ever,
and you got the fucking crowd noise, yeah.
But they'd get the crowds, and so there was one band that I followed that was like my favorite band. And I made a documentary out of them called Look at My Mustache, but it's like 50 minutes. I think it's on Vimeo still, but I don't know. I got to make it more available. I know it's on my website, but I don't know exactly
That's
where.
A fantastic name, Look at My Mustache.
That was one of their songs. And it was about Larry Zonka, and they would always go out and say this song's about Larry Zonka doing cocaine, and literally it was a punk band. All their songs were 30 seconds long. 30 seconds to a minute. It was the first time that I actually experienced sensory overload. Right. And that became very important from that point on in my life. And so now noise bands and things like that. Spoiler alert, Sound of Metal was my favorite movie of the last year. So
same.
One of the reasons because of just that, I was one of those people who were going to those shows but filming, you know what I mean? And so and I remember that movie being announced in 2012 and being psyched about it and telling people about it and thinking it's a great idea, and then he made it and never released it and then finally made it again, and I'm like, what a crazy fucking story that is.
I don't know the story behind it. I just know it was the best film of the year and almost nobody saw it. That I talked to. When I talked to people, everyone saw No Man Land and this, that, and the other, and I'm like, did you see Sound of Metal? Don't say you've seen the best film of the year.
I would like to go on record to say that Nomadland was fucking garbage.
Okay, but that'll be for the next podcast where we do the 4 questions. We can.
But yeah, no, yeah. I just to preface that, I was not a fan, and we'll talk. But Sound of Metal was because those were the guys.
Yeah, that was that world.
That was that world for me. Yeah, and then I started doing short films, and then wasn't out here until I was like, oh man, we got to start thinking.
And you were doing short films while going
to school
to Cape Fear and having that great inspiring teacher and just everything. So everything was coming together.
Slowly but surely. 2010, 2011 was when I was living with a group of guys who literally, I'm trying to think of a way to make that into a movie. We had a great house. We were living on a lake. We were shooting golf balls in the lake every fucking day. Just that was how it went, And then, next thing you know, after we throw a raucous party, the house gets, red flagged, and then the landlord kicks us out, and then we ended up having to move because the place was getting condemned. So it was like the Fight Club house, we lived in the Fight Club house,
which is rad.
And that was like film school, and then film school as well was living with in a couple more places. But we had a crew, which are pretty much the same dudes that I'm working with now, and
So most of the people you were hanging with there came LA.
Here, yeah.
Or you want to say, when did you come out?
August,
like a couple years after that, or
it was we left late July and we got here August 1st, 2014.
Okay, so and we're talking 2010, 2012 right now.
Yeah.
Right, so you stuck it out a couple more years, and then
DSLRs had just come out.
Huge
pivot, and we were like, oh, this is a game changer. And so from 2012 to 2014, it was just make as much shit as we can while we're doing everything we can. I finally graduated with just my fucking 2-year degree after 4 years. That's how much shit I was doing. To be fair, I was an intern on One Tree Hill, and I was doing a ton of shit. But at the same time, looking back at it, it was kind of like the most weirdest, interesting experience. Not a typical 4-year experience.
Well,
but,
I might add that nobody is supposed to go to a community college and get a 2-year degree. Everyone's supposed to
the graduation rates were really low.
Actually getting is it associate's degree or whatever? But getting that AA is like that kick. Just getting it proves something.
Well,
because most people are just there to I want to be able to do some accounting or something.
Yeah. Well, that's the only thing that I got, and then I had some family crises, and then I got some money, and I came out here. So.
And was there a big conversation among you and your crew? That
we were all.
Were you guys always talking about LA or?
Yeah, but I had a family crisis, and one of my closest friends had a family crisis, and so we both had a lot of money. We were just like, let's move, and we came here, and we spent a year trying to basically prep ourselves and prep everybody else, and so, and then eventually we just bounced.
And you hopped in cars and drove for a month?
Yep. A couple days, about a week.
Oh, a week. Okay.
Yeah, a week.
When you said the months, I thought it was right.
No, late July.
That could be a really fun. I was getting into the fact that you just take the 10 at that point or something, right? Like you driving across the country can be a great experience too.
The drive was not fun, but
that's
it was what it was. We were just trying to get out here,
Right. You were getting it done.
Yeah. And then we didn't know anything, and then one of our roommates left, and so then I lived in North Hollywood ever since.
Oh, did you land in North Hollywood? Was that the first spot you guys?
That was the second spot.
Second spot
that I ended up in. First spot was up in Sylmar.
Oh, sure.
Second spot was NoHo, and and then that was it. It was pretty much and so I've been there ever since. Back, I went to Van Nuys for a little bit, but came back, and so yeah.
And you start shooting stuff right away once you got out here, or?
I knew a buddy of mine. I knew a guy who was doing a bunch of PA jobs. Things like that, working for, just random shit. Basically what I'm doing
Which is
now.
What you have to do.
He was
everybody does that.
Yeah, he had gone to film school already, and he had done all that shit, and he was already working, but he wasn't really working. He was just working with a friend of his, come to find out. But that was it, then nothing, then I had to do my own thing, then nothing, then I had to do my own thing, then nothing, then I had to do my own thing, then nothing, then finally... literally out of the gate, I was just like, okay, I have to work on my own shit now. This is getting to the point where it's just So I ended up basically I hooked up with a friend of mine who did a commercial, and that's how I met Doug.
So you met Doug doing a commercial?
Yeah. One of my closest buddies who I used to live with, he ended up basically working with Doug through the grapevine of like friends. And then I told Doug about a bunch of things, and then just trying to gauge his personality, really, and he really liked what I had to offer, and we became Facebook friends. And then he was
Doug Birch. I'll throw in his last name, right?
Yeah, Doug Birch. Yeah. And then he was doing his feature film, The Lost One, and I asked if I could work on it for free, and he was like, yeah, sure. And at the time, I really was just like, who am I to ask for money, and I was just like, I just moved here, but, I wanted to get my
You're still new, so
this is about
pre-circles?
Oh, very much so.
Okay.
This is about maybe like a year and a half in. Maybe a year in, and so then just started doing stuff, and then I captured like his personality. I was like thinking about him, and I was just like, man, this guy's done a lot of shit, and nobody really knows about it. Like, what's the deal, So then I started
writing. The life of the character actor.
Right, yeah. And I didn't know any of these things at the time. Like he was just like a dude who was like, oh, yeah, no, I work on these things. And I was like, what do you work on? And he's like, oh, I work on everything, like under the sun, voiceovers and shit. And then I found him and I was like, oh, my God. I was like, this guy is interesting. And then so I started writing by hand what became Doug.
Many, many years ago.
This was 2015.
15. And I assume you shot the film in 2019?
2018.
2018. And then you had a year post or so.
I was editing as we were still shooting.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm like
so
totally.
like
I'm totally blanking on. Yeah, you did the. You did what I think is a really. I almost wish that one day, like, a big film would do the thing where you like shoot a couple days here and there for like a year. Mm-hmm. Because I think it creates a more interesting piece that you're able to adjust. You're able to adjust the screenplay as you're going to what you're getting. People are able to adjust their performances instead of cramming everything into like 2 weeks from hell and then hoping to edit something worthwhile out of it.
I mean, yeah, it really depends. Like now I'm finding like it depends on the project. I mean,
it does.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
At that point, I had nothing else going on. And so that's all I really wanted to obsess about. And so I was just, when we were shooting, I was like trying to get the scenes that we shot done before we focused on other scenes. And usually they'd take me about a week, 2 weeks. At the same time, I would want to shoot again. So I would, use that as my inspiration to say, hey guys, let's keep going. Let's keep doing this, and everybody who was working on it knew that, what I wanted to do. They just didn't really care because they were like, yeah, let's work. Let's do stuff. Let's actually get out there. Let's actually, make stuff.
And you weren't asking them to give up 6 months of their lives. You were asking for a weekend here and there.
When it came time, I mean, I asked Doug for a year and a half of his life.
Yeah,
so,
that's true. But he was able to do other jobs throughout.
Oh,
right?
For sure. Yeah. But here's the crazy part, though.
Also, the movie's named after him. Might have been a little inspired.
Well, I know more about him now than I did when we were actually making it. I still don't. It's one of those things where like there's still
right.
Like,
it is a fictional character.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. We had talked about it. I mean, it took me years to write it. At one point, I think during 2016 and 2017, I was writing a draft a month. And so literally, it was literally like at the end of the day, I had 20 something drafts, and a friend of mine was just like, I can't read anymore. I was just like, this is fucking done, man. He's like, you just have to own it. And he's like, whatever it is, you just have to own it. And I was like, okay. And so I thought about it.
And was Doug reading them and getting back? Or?
He read a few of them. He didn't read all of them. In some drafts, in the earlier drafts, he dies in every draft. And some other drafts, it wasn't until later that I realized that, it should be he gets what he wants, but it's not really what he wants. And so, and that was kind of like just because I was watching people at my job with all this money, with all this shit in Studio City, thinking, oh man, these guys don't have enough, and it wasn't until later that I would be like, oh, okay, now I see why. But at the same time, though, they were just not real. They were just like kind of like, they're executives and shit. They're people who like have real jobs, but like are money people and don't understand the art behind it. And so,
right. So you were actually exposed to those people through work.
Yeah. And also to different shoots that I was on, just observing and different things and just trying to understand people.
You were kind of but also seeing one of the unappealing sides of the.
Oh yeah, no. Well, a lot of the cafe scenes were inspired by real life situations that I had either seen or that I had either thought about, and I would literally be like walking to a table with somebody's latte, and I would hold on to their receipt and I would just write down, the little things that I was like thinking about. Maybe a scene of Doug talking to a guy,
right,
giving him his headshot, asking to be his agent. They laugh at him. And that was in the movie, so little things like that.
Yeah,
I was just
the microaggressions and put downs that you constantly hear.
And what's funny is that
because it's a pissing match deep down. The whole industry is pissing match and or not to be overly masculine, but it's just like let me it's like dick competition.
Right.
It's like who's got a bigger dick.
Yeah, exactly.
Every stupid conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it was just kind of like, let me try to capture as much of that as I can. And, there were times when we were shooting that I was like, oh, this is fantastic. And times when I was editing it that I was like, oh, this is great. And then times when afterwards, after it was released, after all the work had been done, I was like, did I do enough? And I still don't.
Meaning do enough, like include enough?
Did I do enough? Like, did I do it justice enough? Did I actually that particular character in the instances that because there were a lot of stuff that we shot that I just could not include. I mean, I had to cut like 30 minutes out because, of just what I was trying to include was either just too much or it was too redundant or it just didn't fit. And then, recently I'm just like, like maybe a few months ago, I was like, why couldn't I edit better? So like, I was like, why couldn't I actually think about, oh yeah, this when I was editing the fucking thing, and like, so I don't really know though, but looking back at it, I think that's what you learn, right? And initially it was just kind of, get something out there in a feature film capacity. Thinking that everybody was going that route, finding out, yes, people do go that route. However, so, but yeah, that was pretty much, that was that. And
let me ask the cinematography question, which is, of course, it looks really good. I mean, it is a great looking film. So the question is that natural? Did you build up your skills as a cinematographer, like from starting at the band, like shooting bands leading up to? Because I mean, it looks. I mean, was it in your mind? Was it mostly black and white with some critically color scenes all along? Because your black and white looks perfect.
Oh, thank you.
And that's not. A lot of people think you can just shoot with the DSLR and then desaturate it after the fact. It'll look right, but it won't. I
actually, I wanted to do it in black and white because all my favorite movies are in black and white. But also, too, more importantly, because I was taking a black and white photography course, and it was with film back in like college and back at Cape Fear days, and it was with film, and that's where I fell in love with black and white. And
shooting on 35 millimeter, still black and white, or
35 millimeter still black and white. Yep, and I still shoot in 35 millimeter still black and white. It's a fucking expensive fucking process now, but I do it. But I hadn't shot in about a couple of years, but I definitely want to go back. It just has that like uncanny presence to be sharper. It does more, but now I think I honestly do kind of trend both ways now. I'm thinking color is just as important now in so many different ways. But for me, for this project, it was always when he is in that euphoric state of mind, it should be in color. And when he's in the real world, it's black and white. Because that's kind of, and you know, and I was running with that for the longest time, you know, this piece and this piece. And then everybody read it differently, you know, and was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But,
you are expressing something that's internal.
A lot of it is anger. There's a lot of anger in that movie. It doesn't come off.
Well, no, I mean, the color stuff, actually, like the stuff on the beach, he's clearly pissed off.
But it's supposed to be cold, you know? And when we shot it, it was like springtime, you know, kind of nice. So I tried my hardest to, make it blue instead of making it gold, which was hard because I love gold for daytime. But, the whole thing was really just kind of like, I kind of think of that as like my PhD. If it were my thesis, that would be it.
Right, that project was right. Like if you're a professor back at Cape Fear said, and now shoot a feature to get as your thesis project. That kind of is what you did.
Yeah. I mean, there were scenes that like I had to rethink that were in the earlier drafts that I wanted to include, like that were just because a lot of the scenes that they were very kind of just like. The stereotypical cliche of let's do this because this is how I felt at a moment in time, blah, 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 And then it really didn't hit me until later on that I was like, okay, maybe I should like kind of like bring it down and control the fire a little bit, And then I started to kind of analyze it in a different way. So like at earlier drafts, there were really long acting class scenes. Mostly because I wanted to use certain locations and I couldn't get them, so I had to retailer them and I had to restructure them. And then there's all these little like tidbits that I threw in there that were just really like for me that I don't think anybody else, unless they actually read into it or think about it, would pick up on. Like the fact that Death of a Salesman was a big inspiration on it. Like the fact that the acting class scenes, they didn't really need to be big. All the bullshit that casting directors and that, people who are within that realm in the audition room, what they go through. So, we had some fun, but it wasn't really like, at the end of the day, I was just like, is this enough? Is this not enough? Am I doing my job? Little things like that. There were things that I'm now writing into other scripts from earlier drafts because I liked it so much, but we couldn't keep it. So, a lot of little things like that, But I think it came out well. I think it's, I talk to people all the time who bring it up and they were like, oh, this is fantastic. And I'm like, really? You watched it? Because no one's seen it. Nobody had. Like, in truth, like, how many times have you seen Goodfellas or Casino? Like, you watch them when they're on, but when do you ever seek them out? You never seek them out.
No, especially in this new world of streaming. Obviously, keeps us from hitting our library now. Like you used to have a bookshelf with some people had a ton, some people had a few. But I'm old enough. We had some films on VHS. Like I had Miller's Crossing on VHS, so I've seen Miller's Crossing a million times.
Yeah.
Because like most Saturday nights, when you're young and you have roommates and you're like, what are we going to do tonight?
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
Let's pop that tape in again.
Yeah.
And now you got a billion things on Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu, and it's like there's no reason not to watch something you've never seen before every night.
Yeah, and my movie's too depressing, so.
That's interesting. I was going to say.
Well, to me, it's a comedy, but it's not really a comedy.
Well, when you were talking about did you do your job or not, and I was going to tell you, of course, you did, but I was also going to say that it depends what you felt your job was. Like if you saw your job was to make this feature film about a character study of a character actor who kind of loses his shit or is losing his shit, you did it.
I hope so.
If you felt you were doing a critique of the entire industry, like The Player,
No, yeah, no.
But there's elements of that. Like you definitely show.
I hope so.
Like, let's put it this way: The Player is about 0.001% of Hollywood.
Yes,
and your film is probably about 90% of the people who want to make it, right? Because every fucking for every actor we've heard of, I can't even throw out a number for how many thousands there are.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure.
That might have been just as talented, too. That just,
And, that never really occurred to me.
No? While making it?
I was listening to a ton of podcasts and a ton of things, and I was like, oh, man, this is like an every person thing. But it was like getting that message from above saying, like, hey, this is it. This is it. Every day, something literally new happened when I was writing the project. And that even when we were doing it, I was like, fuck, can't use that. Can't, there were moments where I was like, I want this to happen, but life and shit rolls itself out a different way. I can't think of anything specific, but there were so many notes that I had that I was just like, I have to scrap it. Because like I said, little tidbits that happened. Like there were some shots too where like we did it and dug in real life. Cause like the way we shot it too, I didn't fucking ask for I didn't get permits. Fuck that. The whole thing was $10,000, just about. And we didn't have money for permits or any of that. Yeah. So Doug and I, I'm like trying to figure out my geography of Hollywood and how it feels. And, I was like, we need to shoot entirely on Hollywood Boulevard. And so I just told him, I was like, listen, this is what's going to happen. Like one day you and I are going to be walking. One day you're going to be walking. I'm going to be on skates. One day, that was just how it went. And a lot of the shots where, we used an amalgamation of all of them. I don't remember which days were which, but there were a lot of shots where I was on skates, skating on Hollywood Boulevard, keeping up with him.
Right, and you use skates so you could get that like dolly vibe.
Yeah. And there were a few shots
or Steadicam vibe, whatever. Yeah.
And there were a few shots where I wanted to keep because they looked really cool. Even with the ricketiness, I really didn't mind because really like the whole thing was like. The show Louis was also a huge inspiration. So everything, cinema verite was just like, interesting to me, and it's still interesting to me. And so the fact that like I see it all the time, and like cameras are just, like, yeah, they're Steadicam, sure, but a lot of people get hung up on that shit. And I think really having a little bit of like shakiness is not a bad thing, especially when you see it every fucking where. Even when they're adding it in post, it's still the thing. And I'm like, the reason why handheld is so nice and so natural is because there's literally a guy literally behind the camera saying, oh fuck, 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 every time, literally trying to hold it and literally trying to hold it steady enough. And it's just one of those things where it's like, what I learned in by shooting the bands, just dance with them and then it'll be fine.
Yeah. And actually Steadicam can look great. And it was nifty as fuck when it first came out. And it was like, wow, you can like, do these Scorsese fucking oneers that
sure.
go.
Yeah.
But the truth is, there's an intimacy to handheld. Mm-hmm. And I mean, not that everything should be handheld, but I'm one of those people who like noticed, I forget when, but I noticed when the first person video games gave you the bounce of walking. And if you just walk down the street, you're like, your eyes are never actually steady.
Right.
Like Steadicam is completely artificial. You cannot recreate, you cannot walk from an alley through a restaurant to a table without tons of jitter, tons of bounce. Steadicam is actually sort of a slick, unrealistic presentation.
Well, you know why they made it, right?
Well,
Full Metal Jacket.
It was invented for Full Metal Jacket?
For the most part, yeah.
I did not know that.
Stanley Kubrick was getting pissed that they couldn't have tracks that were just never ending. So he had his camera guy. He
wanted dolly tracks for miles.
So he had this camera guy literally just create this thing, and it was one of those dudes who was like working on like Apocalypse Now too or some shit. I really don't know the whole story per se, but whatever. But anyway,
he challenged him to come up with a rigging where it would be attached to a dude's chest.
Yeah, and that was like one of the very first movies that was implemented in was Full Metal Jacket. And then ever since then, it was just like the carte blanche, let's do this Kubrick method of, getting things done. But like really though, I mean, necessity is the mother of invention, right? Like, You know, so with that in mind, we were just like, whatever happens, happens. Whatever we're capturing, we're capturing. There were a lot of moments on Hollywood Boulevard that were just like really wonderful moments that I thought were going to backfire, but didn't. You know,
the truth is, there's not that many cops in this town, so you were pretty safe.
No, we were, and then they didn't care, man.
Yeah, if they saw you, they just figure you were just like some people on vacation, you know?
Well, yeah, because they don't see, because like the way that, you know,
you didn't have like 15 people walking down the boulevard.
I mean, usually, like, my sets are very small, and so I like them like that. If you're not there, you don't need to be there. Get the fuck out, because it really is like a safe space. And now that, you know, everything is becoming more naturalistic, you know, my only hope is that things get cheaper and like to make anyway, so that, you know, you can get these A-listers who are, you know, working on these little or smaller projects that, you know, would otherwise remain nameless because they don't have anybody there. I mean, really, I think that one of the biggest sins in life is the fact that, you know, a person in show business made $1 million on a project anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, one of those that never saw the light of day, but they still got their paycheck, you mean?
No. Just anything in general.
Oh.
I don't think, I mean, honestly, you know, this is very socialist to me, but I don't think anybody should really, you know, make more than they actually should on an art project. Like, yes, like it's a several $1 million thing. I get it. You know, you're paid a quota, but at the same time, though, why are we watching these Marvel movies that make, you know, that are like $100 million per movie, with these enormous casts and these enormous things that happen? Yeah, I get it, but can we think smaller now? And, you know, for a minute I was like thinking, oh wow, COVID is actually going to make people think differently about how, you know, projects are made. Big projects are always going to be extravagant. That's what makes them really cool, you know? But like at the same time, what about these smaller projects? You know, like who the fuck has $100,000? You know, who the fuck has $20,000 to make something? I mean, literally, some of this is like year salaries for most people, you know? And so, you know, that's why I don't believe in crowdfunding.
Yeah.
You know, it's because you're asking people who don't have money for your thing. Like, that doesn't really... Yeah. And sure, you know, there are these, you know, incentives, but in actuality, it's just heightened narcissism, you know?
It is. I'm with you. And, you know, I'll just add, when you were talking about, you mentioned, you know, socialism, this and that. I always, for years I've said, actually for about 30 years I've said, you know, if being a super successful filmmaker, writer, director, whatever you want to call it, got you a solid middle class lifestyle,
yeah,
then films would be so good, because you wouldn't have, because I've met hundreds of people who, like, you know, they start saying, I want the house, I want the cars, they want all this stuff. Like, if the only reward of filmmaking was making a great film, and then you have kind of the same income as a high school teacher, like, then films would be really fucking good, because no one would be doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And now they're just terrible because too many people are doing them for the wrong reasons. It's one of the reasons why we don't have a budding art community in this country, is because everything is too capitalist. I mean, we can go on.
Yeah, but like, we don't support the arts. Yeah,
we don't support the arts at all. They were cutting shit when I was in fucking school. They were still cutting shit now. They'll never stop cutting, because that's what they fucking do. And they love doing it. They get off to it.
Yeah, actually, Sherman Oaks Film Festival this year of 2021, a lot of the stuff from Europe, like, you know, small, brilliant little shorts, and in the end crawl in the credits, it's like partially funded by, and like they got some government money, because the government's like, whatever, a film about a gay couple.
Oh, they were always doing that. You know,
they support it.
When I was growing up, the most frustrating thing to figure out was knowing that, like, when Peter Jackson was working at Circuit City, he was getting most of his movies funded by the New Zealand Film Corporate. And I'm just like, whoa, wait a minute. They don't fucking do any of that shit here. And, like, some people, like, when I was in Wilmington, they were all like, oh, you gotta get Cape Fear's, you know, film commission. And, you know, it just would have gone down the wrong path. I mean, like, there's you know,
might have gotten free permits. That's it, right?
Well, even in that town, you don't need fucking permits. Like in Wilmington, you don't need permits. And, you know, permits are just a fucking scam created by the industry to basically scam productions because they have a ton of money. They're going to make more money out of it. They say it boosts the economy, but I haven't seen a fucking dollar go into it yet. Have you? You know, there's all these goddamn fucking tents everywhere, you know? So it's literally like, it's just one of those things where I'm just like, that just seems like slightly fraud, but I'm just going to let y'all get away with it, you know? Because it's not my place to be like, yo, this and that. Like, I got better things to do with my time. You know what I mean? If
you definitely can't fix the United States. So it's like,
well, trust me. Another conversation was if I didn't give a fuck about filmmaking, I'd probably be a lawyer and just sue the fuck out of everybody, and then, you know, maybe run for office and then hopefully win and then do everything and then resign after I've done everything I wanted to do, because fuck them all. They don't fucking deserve anything. You know, a lot of my friends who served in the military said, "Why did I come back? You know, why did I come back?" I mean, that's such a great question. And, you know, a lot of them are just kind of like struggling now. And it's really sad. I mean, really, it's just all fucked up. But, you know, and, you know, one of those things is like, for me, you know, I think that, like, you know, right now we're at a very weird time in history, and hopefully it's getting easier. But, you know, if I knew then what I know now about distributing and the companies to go through, you know, I would have probably trusted the distribution process a little bit more with this movie. But, you know, I don't really know.
So with this movie, did you...
with Doug, yeah.
With Doug?
With
Doug, did you, like, approach the... whatever they are, you know, gravitas and this, that, and the other?
No.
Or did you just go your own from the start?
I pretty much was like, I took it on myself to say, listen, like, you know, put it into festivals and then see what happens. That was always like the classic route, you know. Put it into festivals.
And by the way, you submitted it to Film Invasion LA?
Yes.
Before COVID started.
Yes.
And then COVID actually hit. Our final deadline was March 15th. And I believe the shutdown was the following Monday.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah,
because I was still shooting another project by then. Yeah,
like the next Monday was literally the day everyone went to the supermarket and bought everything in sight. I still got tuna cans from that.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, no.
So you released. So you hit the festival circuit in the pandemic. So it was just a whole. Did you
online everything?
Did you keep submitting after you knew it would be online, or did you? Dial back.
Yeah, but now I'm just not interested anymore of submitting. I mean, like I was going to submit to Sundance and Slam Dance this year, and I'm just like not really, because the funny thing is that like I think the fervor is over for that project, and I haven't thought about it in a million years. It seems, and it's only been like a year, and.
So when did you threw it's on?
It's on.
You know what? I forgot to say at the beginning of this podcast. I should have said you should watch Doug on Amazon Prime Video, right?
Well, no, it's not. Okay, so here's the.
Where is it?
So this is what happens with distribution that nobody really knows about until they do it. Is you know, right now what I noticed was during COVID was that all of the conglomerate corporate companies that we can think of off the top of our hands were basically freaking out because movie theaters were dying. And so what they all did was put a plus sign by their name, and they included streaming platforms, which open up the floodgates for their productions, which is fine. But what it does for independent filmmakers is basically fucks them over, because now the algorithm includes a ton of other things that would have included our things. But at the same time, you can keep it on Amazon Prime. You can keep it on those platforms. In fact, you can go through aggregators to get it onto those platforms. It just can't be released. It just can't be talked about like a whole lot, like no clips released until that's released kind of thing. You could put a trailer, I guess, online, but you can't really do much of anything else until like these guys are like done with their things that they do. And so I just didn't have that time. I was just like, this is fucking ridiculous, you know, because the movie's done. It already got the awards at Film Invasion, and so I was just like, okay, well, now I know it's good enough to stand on its own. You know, we got rejected from a few others, but then I was just like, fuck it. Then other festivals accepted us immediately because of Film Invasion, so you know, it was a bit of a yin and yang thing, up and down thing. And then Amazon Prime took it off of Amazon Prime. so
it was up there for a bit, and then they do that thing where they said you can't be free anymore?
Yeah.
You can't be included.
You can't be included in Prime anymore, but it could still be up there.
But you can charge $3.99 or whatever.
Which I think, you know,
which
honestly,
is fair.
Well, I think it's a win because when it was free, we had more views than when it wasn't free.
Yes.
And so that was the crazy thing to me was
and
that
you got like, you know,
Prime.
You could have like 1,000 hours viewed in a month, and they'd send you like 11 cents.
Yeah, exactly. I think I got maybe $20, maybe $50 from Amazon because of that.
Yeah.
But here's the crazy thing, though, is that it's not about any of that shit. It's not about the money. It's not about any of that fucking bullshit. At the end of the day, you know, I had to write, direct, produce, edit, shoot, cast, worry, you know, all that shit. Just for that project, just for Doug, you know, and now it's on Amazon Prime, and it's also on Vimeo on Demand, both of which you can get through my website, which we'll talk about later. But overall, though, it had the biggest win for me. That is if you look up Doug 2020 and or my name, it'll pop up. So it has an online footprint, you know, so it's fine.
And that's like just in a search field.
Right.
Yeah. Which is good.
And for the small amount of ratings that it has, I mean, I'm pretty grateful for that, you know. And to think that the movie is titled after a fucking TV show that was made in the 90s. Give me a break.
Oh, the animated thing?
Yeah.
That would never occur to me.
Well, that's the crazy thing is that when you pop up Doug on Amazon, a lot of it comes up the TV series.
Right, that's where you got to
add
the 2020.
And I never thought about that. And so I was just like, oh, you motherfuckers. So literally, I have to specify. You should have had the birch on there. Well, I had to specify 2020. And, you know, it's just like, it's titles, man. Titles are weird, you know. So, like, but if anybody really is interested to seek it out, that is where, you know, you can find it, you know. You could find it through the IMDb page. You could find it through, like, there's channels, there's ways to see it, but it's only on 2 things right now, unless somebody decides to do something with it. And I mean, I know this is blowing smoke at a certain level, but like, if the acting community, you know, like there's acting teachers that should be able to tell their class, by the way, like, you should watch Doug sometime. You should watch this film about this character actor, because you know, if you think you're going to turn into, you know, if you think you're going to be the next Brad Pitt, you should ask yourself, will you be the next Doug Birch? You know what I mean? Or just Doug Bridgers, but
just because if you come to this town to be an actor, or you're you know, if you consider yourself a struggling actor, like,
of course,
like, I feel like your film does a lot of justice.
Oh, thank you.
That budding actors, or whatever term, I don't want to say struggling, but, you know, just actors in general. Actors and aspirational actors would probably appreciate the shit out of that film. I hope so, yeah. Well, that was the crazy thing, too, was that, you know, I didn't expect people to say, oh, I know people like that. Like, I know a lot of people like that, and they quit, and they did this or that. I did not expect that to be a thing. Because, dude, first 5 minutes, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking of all the actors I know who are like... wow. Oh, wow. No, because literally, like, you know, I mean, and maybe this is where I should get flack on, because, like, to me, you know, it was more of a catharsis of Los Angeles, and then it grew into this character. That's always what it was. And then I never thought about the between the lines aspects of, oh yeah, like,
You know, this is what people go, like, it's not easy, you know, and like a lot of people do either die or end up in, you know, because you know those stories, but you don't really know those stories. And so, like, you know, the fact that, like, in real life, like, you know, Doug, he actually is a voiceover actor, and that's how he makes money. And, you know, he lives in a great house. I mean, I just got off, I've been off, you know, several disappointing shoots because people who are filming those shoots think that, you know, they want to make, like the reason why they're doing this is so they can get millions of dollars. And I'm like, that's not how it works.
Like indie shoots where they're full of that.
I was on one that I was shooting this past year that was a fucking nightmare.
Right. And, so you were the DP and whoever was behind it was
they expected me to do every other role, and it was just a goddamn nightmare. And, you know, I pretty much disowned it because, you know, I really don't care. Guy has yet to do anything. You know, I've not, you know, been on anything quite like that where I've been insulted and I never actually get the whole, you know, and it's really not about any
you
of
weren't
that.
even given what you were promised, you mean?
I wasn't even given a base camp. We were told, like, I was literally on a fucking terrible, like, this was like, you know, Doug actually had production value compared to this piece of shit thing. This piece of shit thing was just blessed to have good actors. So, you know, but like I do shit for money where I film stuff for money. You know, I like film other projects and things like that. And like a lot of people just don't, you know, they see the dollar signs at the end of the road. They don't understand the production aspect. So, you know, when I talk so highly about my Cape Fear times, you know, and I get emotional because it's like David Kreutzer and Lucinda McNamara were my two mentors. They were the true people who said, this industry is terrible. You do it because you love it. And that's the bottom fucking line. You know, we weren't watching The Graduate because it was a good movie. We were watching it because that's art. We were watching it because of, like, you know, and at one point, like, one of the papers that I wrote was just too much about lighting. And he's like, it's art, not science. And I'm like, but AMPAS. And he's like, yeah, but what does it say and before sciences? Arts. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, fine, you win. But, you know, it is a little bit of all that. And unless you actually work on stuff,
it is art and science.
It.
It's definitely a it's definitely a balance.
I think it's I don't really know how to quantify it. I mean, Salvador Dali once said, like, the most, you know, it's probably the most influential medium, and he was absolutely right. And it was one of those crazy things where, like, you know, when you watch Unchi and Nanalu, you think, oh man, these guys are fucked up. But, like, you know, now it's like, you know, you can get into John Waters territory, and then the later shock value stuff of even now is just even out of control. So I don't really know. I think it has a lot to do with just, you know, where we are at different epochs, and I think that is important. Understanding that is important. That's what film theory is supposed to teach, and it doesn't. And, you know, that's infuriating because a lot of people don't, you know, it's more of a philosophy than a way of actually living, I feel like. And unless you actually adopt that as a point of view, then you're going to be completely lost. And then you're going to hate it. And then you're going to make a movie. You're going to spend way too much money on it that you shouldn't have spent on it, you know? And so, I mean, it's been a 12-year journey to make one movie. Yeah. Pretty much. So, yeah.
One feature, yeah. You've obviously done a handful of shorts here and there, but
yeah. And now I'm like doing more low budget features because, you know, why not? Now is the time to get them out there and to fail. I mean, I should have done them back in like 2011, 2012. If I had done it back then when DSLRs were a thing, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. Like, literally, because, like, just the way that everything kind of works within, you know, the 4-year generational gaps or the 6-year generational gaps, it's, like, insane. Like, in 2011, 2015 or whatever, you know, Greta Gerwig, the Duplass brothers, you know, those were the cats who were lucky enough just to have the foresight to think, oh, yeah, you know, we should do these terrible movies now. And not to say that every movie of that, I mean, I think it gets a bad rap. I think it should be called something else. I honestly do think that there should be an award category at the Oscars for guerrilla filmmaking, just for the simple fact that independent movies are more important than the bullshit that they're churning out now. And I think that, although some people get very lucky with, their bullshit, our bullshit still has yet to see the light of day. So it's one of those things where it's just show some love, as my favorite Entourage quote, show some respect for the below the line and watch the credits, because it's true. Nobody gives a fuck. Everybody's just like, and it's just sad, Yeah,
so, even the Independent Spirit Awards, which I was aware of or actually voting for it, but when it was still IFP, Independent Feature Project, they, the first couple of years it was truly indie. And now it's just another Starfucker event.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's just, it's just like who's got... I think they have a micro-budget category that maybe like 5 truly indie films get acknowledged a year. But you look at the list of films nominated,
the shorts category?
I don't know.
No.
I mean, it's become so relevant, actually. Well, sure. I don't really pay attention to it anymore. Every once in a while I see the list of the nominees and I'm like, it's not an indie film if it's got... Right. An actor who took $250,000.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Who normally gets $10 million, but they took they took $250 because they're helping the arts.
Yeah.
But I mean,
there was a movie where such and such, some dude, some buddy guy was in a movie about a buddy guy, and he ended up taking, I think it was 75% of the budget. Not going to say who it was, but. The movie still has not been finished because of that buddy guy.
This is a project you worked on?
No, this is a project that I heard through the grapevine through another buddy guy who told me about this buddy guy who had this guy fuck him over completely.
Oh, that's a hard story.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things where, like, I mean, I think that one of the things that I'd like to do in life, if I ever get the opportunity to, and if somebody is hearing this, let's go in on it, because I think this would be very important. You open up a little wine bar bodega that is pretty much a museum, and it's also a filmmaking and comedy and everything platform. You make it specifically for the arts, and you call it the Museum of Laughter. And all it is just, it's a wine bar, yes, but it's also a museum. And for, a little while, you get comedians and people who have infectious laughs, and then you get to hear them played back for you when you get to their like little thing, and it's just their laughter. So it's like, people like that I find infectious laughter, but also too, but like that's one side of it. And the other side of it is on certain nights they have comedy shows, on certain nights they have film nights, and on certain nights they have, things like that where it's like bands playing or screenings or things like that where it gets people into the place. But at the same time, it's really promoting every aspect of independent art that you can think of. Aside from the laughter of people, it's really just more so an art throw up event where basically like, it's almost like a commune of sorts, but disguised as a wine bar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I get where you're going because, look, I have the same thoughts because programming a film festival that's local, like,
right.
Some film festivals do involve an art gallery too, and some live music and some comedy, all kinds of stuff, and make it like a cultural arts thing. But you can't even come close to making ends meet if you don't sell booze.
Yeah.
Like making a part of a wine bar makes the artsy side possible.
Yeah, it would be something that could exist in Wilmington easily, but I don't know if it would exist in a big city like LA. It could, but people have to be into it.
Need benefactors off the top so that you could survive.
It would never really. It would be more like a pop-up thing. I could see it, but at the same time, though, like that's always been an idea, and one of these days maybe. But because the reason why I say that is because there was a dude in Wilmington who used to live in this second floor apartment my college town. And one day a date took me there, and she was like, oh, yeah, no, this would be a cool spot. You'd love it. And this guy, it was like invite only based on who he knew, but he was a part of SAC, and I didn't know that. And he was a voiceover actor. I didn't know that. And he would get these screeners of the award contenders, and he would host movie nights where he would just show the screeners to a select group of people who actually showed up between the hours of 7 to 7:30. And it wasn't really anything he would advertise. It was just like, yo, I'm doing this, if anybody wants to come by.
And friends of friends.
And then you walk into his fucking apartment and forget it. It was like one of those Warhol-style lofts where, like, Velvet Underground is playing in one corner and a movie's playing in another corner. It was literally just like that, But yeah, no, that was a great time. And something like that, I think, is really important because – all of the best experience I ever had for Doug was seeing it on a big screen. And then, that's probably the only time we'll see it on a big screen for quite a while.
Mostly because of COVID, right? I mean,
mostly because of COVID.
If COVID hadn't come along.
My plan was to get, was to literally get a DCP going for Doug at one point and then literally just whore it out to local theater companies who wanted to actually show movies. But it would only be for a weekend, and I would say, oh, it's going to be here, it's going to be here, it's going to be here. Yeah. And it would only be for like a few days. And then, of course, the famous Tommy Wiseau thing where it's like he spent $1 million just doing that entirely. And so, you would almost have to do it in places like the Arts District or certain spots. I mean, get lucky enough to screen it in real life at like Sherman Oaks or like Film Invasion, But like at the same time, though, nobody could have ever predicted the last year to be a thing.
Year and a half.
Yeah, we're still really. But at least theaters are open.
We can go back in the theaters now. Yeah.
So.
As far as I know, in November there's going to be Sherman Oaks Film Festival only in the theater.
Fingers crossed.
The only thing that could stop it is another variant that completely makes the vaccine irrelevant, and then they'll close theaters. But right now, I don't even think. But I think we're actually going to have to require vaccination cards at the door, which is fine with me, actually.
Yeah, I don't really care. I mean, it is what it is, man. I once, my girlfriend and I went to go see Pig a couple weeks ago, and that theater was packed. Nobody really, everybody was wearing masks, but, I was, of course, popcorn and shit. I fucking go all out when I go to a goddamn theater. I fucking go all out. I cannot wait to see the new James Bond movie. I'm going to see it twice. Can't wait.
I haven't done a theater yet, but I've done outdoor concerts.
Yeah.
I went to a Dodger game.
But that's still outside.
Yeah, it's outside, and it's
yeah. I mean, that's the thing is that we have to. It's this whole thing of adapting that we've never really done before. Have you seen Spike Lee's new thing, the documentary?
No.
You need to watch that. Everybody needs to watch that. It's probably the most important.
Is it on Netflix?
No, it's on HBO.
Oh, HBO.
HBO Max. New York City epicenters. It's fascinating.
I love when he does it. I mean, I actually am a fan of all he does, but a lot of people don't. He got his degree in documentary.
Oh, did he really?
I think his NYU emphasis was documentary.
Well, because I remember seeing When the Levees Break, and I remember seeing this thing, was just had like a similar impact. But it was funny though because he's always been one of those enigmatic figures to me who can have the success that he has, not really give a fuck about what anyone thinks about him, and then kind of just put out a stunning Scorsese level documentary. And God loves Scorsese, but not all of his documentaries are great. A lot of them are fucking boring. I could not get through the George Harrison one. But the Spike Lee joints are really fun. And I think too the Epicenter one, because he talks about how the response and the information from COVID-19 was no different than the response and information for 9/11. And he does the compare and contrast to both of those time periods. And, just how New York gets destroyed every decade or so, every 10 or 20 years is just it's interesting to me because I used to love that town. I used to want to live in that town, and now I don't ever want to go near it. But I would, I still want to visit and stuff like that. I asked myself if I had the opportunity to do it, to live in Greenwich, would I? Fuck yeah, for about a year. But I've never, people say they hate LA. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about New York. Sorry to say, but I've never really been. The times that I've been was only a few times, and I was like, just kind of like, I don't know, man. It's too fucking cold. So
New York is, I think...
I love it, though. It's a great city. I want to shoot there, but, it's one of those things where, like, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
I can't remember the song, but it's something along the lines of, it's a LCD Sound System song, but it's something about New York's great if you've got someone to pay the rent. Because it makes LA seem affordable,
That's ironic. My family's lived in Staten Island for their entire lives.
Oh yeah, so you have a home base there of sorts.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, they do their own thing, but they're still family, and we talk all the time as much as we can. But they've been living the dream and doing what they want to do, and COVID hasn't stopped them at all. So who knows? It's just so ridiculous. The whole thing is just out of control.
It's been tough.
And honestly too, I mean, I don't know. We got so much, like, we're such a divide, like, as a country. Like, I remember when, like, Brokeback Mountain came out, and living in South Florida at the time, nobody could really accept it. There's just like our country's too big to the point where there are pockets that don't get mainstream hookups.
Yeah, but culturally, there's
just too much going on.
I mean, everything might be, I don't want to focus on red and blue, but like everything might be purple, but the purple gets bluer and redder as you move around. And there's some places where... Well,
let's put it this way. When you talk to a foreigner, I've talked to a bunch of them. I talked to this one French guy. He goes, "Oh, we know in France is New York and LA. That's it. What about Chicago? Oh, yes, that too." And I was like, "What about Missouri? Oh, what?" And it's like, oh, see, you guys don't know what the fuck. So yeah, but literally the big cities is what most people think about, and that's where we're at. It's just crazy to me.
It is interesting.
It's just bizarre.
It's tough. It's tough to think that Brokeback would be tame if it was released now.
Right, exactly. But back then it was
still, pushing. But there's still parts of the country where they're like, I wouldn't want anyone to see that because it'll corrupt them.
Oh yeah. Or even like more recently too, movies like Sorry to Bother You, or like the ones that actually push the buttons on a very avant-garde level. People just
Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah, right, Well, some of those movies, I mean...
But, like, they do great in the...
what's crazy? Well, what's crazy about North Carolina is that when Drive came out, only one theater was playing it.
Really?
Drive with Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, with Ryan. Why? Was that...
and it wasn't even the big theater. Can you believe that shit? I had to go at 2 in the afternoon. I had to skip class.
Why was it embraced as like a big... Because it was like a little indie-ish?
Because nobody knows what the fuck's happening over there.
Really?
Nobody knows. And literally, like, I'm hearing like a teacher down the hall.
So it wasn't a superhero, so it was like hard to find.
Right. I was listening to a teacher down the hall. He goes, "Oh, did you ever see this movie called Drive?" And I turn around and go, "Yes, this guy gets it." Because, dude, that movie, I mean, that was a fantastic movie. And the fact that, I could see it in this little box like nobody ever went to. It was me and 2 other people, And we had the same questions. What the fuck is going on? Why is he killing that guy? Is he dead? We were just like, what the fuck is this? And it was such a, but it's, that's about it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, actually, to be honest, we should probably wrap it up and then jump into your 4 questions, because I think you're going to have a fun.
Yeah,
it's going to be fun 4 questions. So tell the people, those who are with us, and we thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
What's the website? Where should people go if they want to pick between Vimeo or Prime? Or
my website is jonathanlatona.com, my full name, at Johnny Boy Films. But you can find all the extensions through my website, so just go there.
Excellent. And
which I'm sure will be a link on the thing.
And God bless you for having a unique name, man.
Is it? I hope so.
Well, if you got jonathanlatona.com, that's pretty nice, because needless to say, I couldn't get jeffhoward.com.
Right.
I don't know who has it. Some dude. Not even the more famous one.
The guy that I'm talking to right now.
The guy, I'm actually jeffhoward.me. If anyone cares. I was able to get the .me like I live in Montenegro.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, well, you know how to find Jonathan. So now I'm going to go ahead and give you the final spiel, which is if you're listening to this podcast, give it 5 stars, right? You're probably listening
give
on
it 5 stars.
On some podcast app, whatever. Where just give it 5 stars. Actually, go on to Amazon Prime Video or go to Amazon.com and look up Doug 2020. And
don't go to Amazon.
Don't go to Amazon. I'm just saying, give you stars. Give you stars.
Yeah. We'll go to IMDb. Rate it on IMDb.
Give him 10 stars. Give him a 10 out of 10. Oh no, on Amazon it's 5 stars. Right?
Just rate it on IMDb. Give it a 10 out of 10 on IMDb. Give it 5 out of 5 on Amazon, and go buy it. Actually, buy it on Vimeo, because that's where you actually do support
Vimeo and watch it. It's a really I tell you, it's a good film. You can watch it, and then you can go on Instagram and go to @JohnnyBoyFilms and have a conversation with the filmmaker. Come on, and he'll pull Doug in.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm working on more stuff with him, actually.
Excellent. All right. Well, anyway, if you want to learn about Discover Indie Film, which is the podcast you're listening to, and there is a Amazon Prime Video companion TV series to it that's an anthology of great short films. Go to discoverindiefilm.com, and on social media, it's @DIFWins. And we talked about a couple festivals that Jonathan was at. Every November is the Sherman Oaks Film Festival, and you can learn about it at ShermanOaksFF.com. And on social media, it's @ShermanOaksFF. And finally, Film Invasion LA, where Doug cleaned up and took home 3 awards. Go to filminvasionla.com, and it's @FilmInvasionLA on social media. And that festival is every June, so we got one in June and one in November. Mm-hmm. And thanks, Jonathan, for coming in.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. The next podcast after this one will be Jonathan answering the 4 questions.
Woohoo!
Which, favorite films, underrated, overrated, something to find. All right. We'll talk to you soon.